I want to welcome you to the first in a series of 7 sessions about business planning for agritourism enterprises. My name is Lisa Chase, and I'm with University of Vermont Extension and the Vermont Tourism Research Center. This webinar is hosted jointly by the Global Agritourism Network and the National Extension Tourism Network Agritourism Working Group based in the US. We are grateful to the Northeast Extension Risk Management Center for providing funding for this series and one-on-one technical assistance that follows this series. Today is the first of 7 modules, 7 weekly sessions online that will help guide you through the process of completing a draft business plan. Today, we're focused on writing your business description, and we are working with the Center for Farm Financial Management in Minnesota, as well as a number of other colleagues in different states around the US to put together 7 weeks. If you come to every online session or watch the video afterwards if you can't make it, and you do your homework, by the end of the 7 weeks, March 26th, you will have a complete draft of your business plan. Now, I am saying draft of your business plan because we like to think of a business plan as a working document, a living document. It's never final. It's completed for this moment in time, and hopefully will be very useful for you for providing informed decisions and documentation needed for getting loans and applying for grants and other reasons, but we still view it as a working document. And today with us, we have Zach Smith from University of Vermont Extension and Curtis Mencken from the Center for Farm Financial Management. Before I turn it over to them and we get started, I just want to take a couple of minutes to find out who is here with us today. So I'm going to launch a couple of polls. This first poll asks you to describe yourself, and you may check as many boxes as you would like. So wondering if you're an agricultural producer, if you're an educator, if you're with Extension or doing research, I'll give you a couple moments to click the boxes. I'm now going to end the poll and I'm going to share the results. And you can see that we are far and away over 3/4 agricultural producers. And then we also have some extension, nonprofits, government, educators, researchers, tourism professionals. Almost half of the people here are business owners or managers. And of course, we have other. So as you're typing into chat to introduce yourself, please also, especially if you chose other, let us know what your other is. Now we have one more poll, and this asks you where you are in the business planning process. Do you already have a business plan? Maybe you have one, but it's not for agritourism. Maybe you're working on it. And maybe you haven't even started, and that's fine. This session is meant for all of those levels, and even those who are just kind of checking it out. And most people, 42%, do not yet have a business plan. You've come to the right place. If you stick with us for 7 weeks, you will at least have a complete draft by the end of March. And then we have quite a few, that 1/4 of the folks here have a business plan, but not for agritourism, and 28% are already working on it. And for even those of you who said, yes, I have a business plan, if you want to learn more about AgPlan or have the opportunity to update your business plan, you're in the right place. Then before we turn it over, we just have one last question for you. And this is, again, in chat. What do you want to get out of this workshop? Why are you here? What compelled you to join us? Do you want to have a complete business plan by the end of March? Do you have some specific questions related to your agricultural operation or business planning specifically? Or are you someone with extension, like me, someone who works in outreach, who's supporting farms writing business plans, and you're looking for a new tool, AgPlan, that we will introduce you to today? Let us know why you're here and what you want to get out of today. And could I have the next slide now, Zach? Because I'm going to introduce Zach Smith, who is an agricultural business educator from University of Vermont Extension, and he has been working for many years in Vermont and other parts of the world supporting farms with business planning and especially around agritourism. So Zach, I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Lisa. And thank you everybody for being with us here today. I'm going to do a little introduction on my background and then we'll get right into it. With respect to this 1 hour session, forgive us if we're going to go a little fast. There's a lot of information here, but we have the recording and we're always going to be available for any questions, follow-up questions, or, during the Q&A session. But yeah, so I'm an agricultural business educator at the University of Vermont Extension. I got into agritourism actually a very long time ago in Peace Corps, because basically I was working with a farm, and at this farm, we ran out of space, and we couldn't grow anymore. We couldn't buy any more land, so we started to find ways to diversify revenue streams. And through this process of business planning with this family, the lovely Pacha Uchiwari family that you see right there, we just started doing different things, going to parks and selling our products in parks, and then inviting people to the farm. And then the one time that we invited someone to the farm, it was a grocery owner, and the grocery owner said, he was like, "This is such a beautiful farm. You need to bring people out here so they can see everything that you have out here. They can tour your facilities. They can pick what they want, right? And they point out and pick what they want, and take it home for them." And we actually, we're inspired a little bit, like to have a restaurant. It was a short-lived restaurant, but we just couldn't man it for the time being. But after this experience, I just really, I continued to work with farmers throughout the world, and it always just seemed like the idea of agritourism was really attractive to a lot of farms when it made sense. And I continued to do that in several countries in Latin America, and now I'm doing this in Vermont, leading this initiative in Vermont. So what I've learned through all of this is, there's a good idea, and everybody has a lot of ideas, but business planning is very, very important, because not only does it help you formulate the ideas, but it also helps you manage risks that are involved in taking on something new. So that's the real main focus why we do business planning, and I'm going to go over those elements with you. A business plan is a formal statement of business goals, and the reasons why they are believed to be attainable, and the plan for reaching those goals. We've kind of already answered this, but if you feel like along the way if you want to share some of those strategies that you used while you were creating your business plan, feel free to throw it into the chat, or we can talk about it a little bit later. But I wanted to get those juices going on what were the strategies that you found were useful or perhaps detrimental to you during your process. Who needs a business plan? When you're talking to a business planner, I'd probably say everybody. Any business is going to benefit from having a business plan. It's particularly valuable for people who are getting into something new farmers, or people who are expanding into something, the people like when they're at the stage of making a big change, making a diversification move. Along those ways, there are people that are getting very, very creative on the farm, and they're finding new ways to approach niche markets, value-added. I mean, I'm talking with everybody all the time about value-added activities that they can do on their farm. And one of those major value-added activities on a farm is agritourism. The business plan's purpose is to demonstrate that you have taking the time to objectively think through the details required to make a business succeed. Why is this important? It allows you to effectively communicate your business to externally to lenders, investors, and partners. I can't say how much I work with people. They call me up, and it's because a lender or a financial institution, recommended them. They just say, We can't do anything until you have a business plan. You can't move forward until you have a business plan." So that's very important. But also, when you're bringing on a partner, it's really important to get them up to speed. And how easy you get them up to speed? Well, just with sharing an already made business plan. And then internally, family members and employees, just like what I was saying with partnerships, it's really important to have some document that allows someone to know how things are anticipated to be going with this business. Um, and most importantly, it's going to help you to improve the management of your business. It's a blueprint for operating your business. And it serves as a guide. I know a lot of people, when we're going through a business planning process, it's long. People don't like it a lot of the times, but I do find that people come back to their business plan. Perhaps they're moving so fast through the seasons that they kind of just forgot about what they wanted to do throughout the year. And this document serves a purpose to guide you during your operations, during your decision making throughout the year. So it's very important. Um, and like I mentioned, it is very time consuming, but it can be expensive. If you should always be considering the time that you're putting into this, and also the time that perhaps if you bring on a consultant or something like that, it can be very expensive. It's best to be done by an owner and the management of the business. And like I was mentioning, it should be a living document. It's supposed to be revisited. It's supposed to be revised. You should always be checking in on it. I know that last thing, revisiting and revising, is not too realistic, but the people who do revisit and revise on an annual basis are the people that are truly like making some success with their business. With the major functions of management, you're able to look into your production, your marketing, your personnel, and your financial status. A lot of people go straight to financial, which I don't blame you. I do that. That's my process too. I go straight to making sure that an idea is going to financially make sense, and then I build around it. So in many cases, but a lot of business planners have different objectives, and sometimes they're starting in different areas of management as they get their business plan going. So, talking about the section of business plan, and we're gonna check these out a little bit later too. But the major sections of a business plan are the executive summary. The executive summary is actually meant to be done last. That is because it's a summary of what the document contains within it, and it gives reference to the sections that follow. The business description is one of the first sections, and we're going to talk about that today. But yeah, a business, we'll go over that. Business description, operations plan, marketing plan, management and organization plan, and a financial plan. So I'm not going to go too in depth with all of these different sections. They kind of explain themselves. And in the subsequent weeks that are coming after this, we're going to dive deep into each one of these sections and walk through them with you. So yeah, how to develop a business plan. Most people are using planning software, which I think is a great idea. We are very partial to planning software that we are going to present today, which is within AgPlan. But yeah, getting started with planning software just allows you to have a guide as you're developing your plan. It outlines what you need to get done. It creates suggestions on content, and it also provides a lot of sample parts of plans. So you're able to look at examples and see how to develop this plan. Like I mentioned, as we move forward, we're going to be showing these examples to you. And within the Ag Plan, what we have are a variety. You're going to see a variety of plan types. such as commodity, value-added, agritourism, organic transition, small business, personal plans, and short-term and operator plans. But we're going to focus these, we're going to be concentrating on agritourism and applications to agritourism businesses. So speaking about agritourism, we're going to move forward and get into the nitty-gritty of developing a business description using AgPlan. And now I'll pass over to Curtis, and he will explain a little bit about the details of how to use AgPlan and the description, how to develop a business description.
Well, thank you, Zach, and good afternoon, everyone. As Zach and Lisa have said, my name is Curtis Monken. I'm with the Center for Farm Financial Management at the University of Minnesota. As we're going to be talking about AgPlan, we are the developers of AgPlan. Since I have been here at the University of Minnesota for 14 years now, I have done quite a bit of business planning education. We've worked a lot with producers of many different commodities and products around the country, including lobstermen in Maine and the Northeast, asparagus growers. We even have commercial fishing businesses out in Alaska that we've worked with on business planning. And really, as we go through this, the business planning process is sort of the same as we go across. And when we think about the business description, as we think about how do you actually create a business plan and start, it really is the best place. The business description is the best place for you to start. And it's because that's what you are doing. It's the easiest to write because you're just talking about what you are wanting to do. As you see on the screen, there's the sections that are within the business plan, the business description area of AgPlan. We'll show you AgPlan a little bit later and kind of how easy that is to use. And then as you go through the rest of the weeks with this team, you can get into AgPlan and you can work on each of these individual sections. Here at the University of Minnesota, we have a class that uses AgPlan to plan out their entire semester when they're working through and put the students into groups together, and then they work through all of that. So you see the sections: business overview, location, facilities, business history, ownership structure. Those are the ones that you kind of get into. And as you start thinking about, like, okay, how do I do this, and what am I writing in each of these sections? You don't have to use each individual section. Just keep that in mind. Use what is relevant to you and your operation. But the business description is something that you can really write to. When you talk about the business overview, you can talk about what you're doing. You can talk about what crops and livestock that you are planning on raising. I know I've seen some. I've seen goat yoga. I've seen just other goat farming. I was just kind of scrolling through the chat just to see what else has been done. Let's see. More agritourism. I mean, there's lots of different ideas that are in the chat. And with that, you can talk about that in each of the sections. You can talk about what other services you provide. Since this is for an agritourism business plan, talk about, do you have a bed and breakfast? Do you have a U-pick, or where there's a corn maze, or whatever it is? You can talk about that. Talk about where your market is. So, for example, I have a good friend who has a corn maze here in Minnesota, so he could talk about where he's located here in Minnesota, how close he is to the metro area of Minneapolis, St. Paul, or if he's not, and maybe that's a good thing. He can talk about that. He can talk about the size of the business. And then also talk about a little bit about what the future holds for your business and the industry as a whole. And if you're just getting started, you can talk about why you chose to actually get into agritourism. So if we go into the ownership structure and think about what to put in there, really talk about what your ownership structure is. Are you a sole proprietor? Is it you and your partner? Is it you and your business partner? But talk about why you chose that structure. What are the benefits to you? What are each of the partners bringing into the business? And then talk about why why you're going into business with that particular partner. As it says on the screen, elaborate on multiple business entities. So maybe on one hand, you have a dairy farm, and on the other hand, you have let's just say a strawberry patch. But then you're coming together and you're selling strawberry ice cream at a roadside stand or something like that. Talk about why you want to have those different things that are going on together. And then on the next screen, so actually, yes, this is an example that we've taken right out of AgPlan. That's so you can kind of read through it. I'm just going to pick out a few things that I see in this. So it's a 70 cow dairy farm. So they're talking about the size along with 565 acres of cropland, how much is owned, how much is leased. If we go down to the bottom, what they're feeding. So that's just a good idea of what we have in there. And then this is actually for an orchard, but again, they're talking about how they're a seasonal agritourism business with you pick apples and pumpkins. They have hay rides, corn maze walks, and then they do some retail on the side. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next screen. And let's just go ahead and skip over this one. Are we through? Oh, I think we are. But as you kind of go through, you can kind of see like this one here on the facilities. They're talking about what the real estate is, what the retail is, what equipment they need to have. Are they in good repair? Are we needing to replace them? With the greenhouse, talking about what they're going to be constructing. So as I look at that greenhouse, it says it is hoped that within the next year, Lakeshore Orchard will construct a new 10,000 square foot greenhouse. This will allow Lakeshore to produce its own chrysanthemums and fall perennials, as well as extending its product line into spring bedding plants. So what that paragraph in particular is doing for Lakeshore is it's saying, okay, this is what we have, and this is what we need. This is what we're planning on. And then that's going to filter through the entire rest of their business plan as they get into the financial plan, as they get into the marketing and all of the other sections. That really does go through each individual page, each individual section of their business plan, because that's what they're wanting to get to. On the next screen, then, they're talking about the business history. They're talking about, in this case, it's more milk. So they're talking about where they came from. So they've been involved in the dairy since they came to the farm in 1996. They had 28 Holsteins, and then they're up to their current 70 cow operation. They can talk about all of those things. And as Kelly just put in the chat, you can also put in consideration for providing tours and educational tour for your local community. So these are all great things that you can put into your business plan. And I think on the next screen, I think we have an ownership structure example. There we go. So again, it's just talking about how they're a sole proprietor. That might be what you are, but maybe as you are writing your plan, you need to think about, okay, maybe we need to have some more protection on some things. So you want to talk about here's what we are, but here's where we're going currently. So those are all things to be considering as we go through it. And again, this one on Lakeshore Orchard. So they're talking about how they're a limited liability company. And then Kelly and Steve, in this case, being 50% member owners. So, and then who has the assets and all of that. So on the next screen, I think it's time to put you to work.
Yeah, well, thanks, Curtis. That was very informative. So now this is a little part of the session that we're going to do all together. And what I would like to do is ask you to break out a sheet of paper, and we're going to get started with the business description. This is just a little exercise to get the creative juices flowing. You saw some examples that Curtis went through, and and so now what I'd like to do is take about 10 minutes. Right now it's 1:28 on Eastern time here. If we could just take a little 10-minute break and walk through these questions that I have here for you. And this will allow you to get something going. And we're going to utilize this. We're going to talk about this. We're going to share the process, and then we're going to utilize this a little bit later on in our programming here. So I will give you until 1:38 to come back, and we'll talk about the process.
There are some good questions popping up into chat, and I don't want to distract everyone from writing your business description. So if you want to stay focused for the next, there's 6 minutes left, feel free to put me on mute. But I figure if for those who did put questions into chat, we can talk through those. One of them is there software we can input all these answers to? And yes, that is a great question, Susan. And very soon we are going to be introducing you to a software. We just thought we'd start out low tech. You can, if it's easier for you to type it into a computer and copy and paste, or if you prefer writing on paper, whatever works best for you for now. Zach, Curtis, do you want to take some of the other questions in chat? I figure if we're distracting you while you're working, put us on mute and come back at 1:38 Eastern time. But in the meantime, let's address these questions verbally.
Yeah, definitely. As far as the process for adding agritourism or any new enterprise to an existing business, the main issue is like, on one hand, you want to separate that new enterprise. Like as you're going through the plan, you still are going to go through the same process, the business planning process. You're going to talk about how you're putting everything together, how are you going to produce it, how's the organization going to manage it, who's going to manage it, how are you going to market it, what are its financial impacts going to be. And so on one hand, you separate that out, you look at it as one enterprise, but then you're going to want to bring it into your existing business plan. So in that case, what you have to do is look at it specifically, like the financial side of it. Like you're going to notice the revenue contributions, you're going to notice new costs, but perhaps there are some expenses that can be shared across the board throughout your business, like with your other enterprises. So you'll find stuff like that. And yeah, so it's definitely like good to see it as itself, as its own entity, as its own enterprise, and then bring it into the business plan on how is it going to work with all of the other enterprises on the farm. So that's the general process that I like to go through.
I can jump in with a response to Jill Williams' question. What are ways to protect us against liability issues? Are there specific insurances we need to have to cover us if little Jimmy is bit by a goat and mama wants to sue? Yes. One of the challenges, one of the major barriers for a lot of people with agritourism, with bringing visitors onto their farm, is you do expose yourself to a number of new liability issues. Jill, I'm not sure what state or country you're from. If you want to drop into chat where you're from, that might be helpful. From Georgia. Okay. I'm not positive about Georgia in terms of whether they have a limited liability statute, but more and more states, I think we're over half the states in the US now, have a limited liability statute for agritourism. Here in Vermont, it's called Act 31. And if we post a sign that's worded a specific way, basically that says to visitors, warning, you are here at your own risk. This is a working farm, there's specific language that goes into these signs. And as Cindy mentioned, liability waivers, there's specific language that many states' legislatures have approved. And that helps protect you through a limited liability act for tourism. However, it's not enough just to post a sign or have people sign a waiver and say we're good. It's also very important to have insurance. So talk to your insurance agent. I imagine all of you probably, hopefully, have farm insurance. Sometimes sometimes insurers are very open and welcoming to adding agritourism enterprises. Sometimes they're not. I've known farms that have shopped around a bit and that have even changed their insurance provider as they've added agritourism enterprises. It's really important that your insurance agent and that your plan covers the events or the overnight stays or whatever it is that you're hosting on your farm. Curtis, Zach, you want to add anything in for that question or any of the other questions in chat? And I will say that we don't have to be the only ones giving answers. Kelly Hepler, who's also part of this project, has been putting in great information. Everybody else who knows something about, state laws in California or Georgia or New York or Ohio, feel free to share the knowledge we have. The knowledge that you have. We recognize there's a lot of experts here in the room with us, and we want to take advantage of your information. Our 10 minutes is just about up, so I'm going to turn it over to Zach and Curtis and see if you want to address anything in chat or if you want to jump right into the next segment here.
Well, I will say that, I mean, I continue to learn about that, about insurance and stuff, just from, even from all the way to like, from attorneys to like the legal side of things, but also even tax planners will have, it's so getting, going local, talking with people that you already have some relationships with is really important, or just getting started with a simple Google search is really, but keep it local, keep it to your state. Even, I mean, even through like your municipalities is really, it's a really good place to start. And it does get complicated. So it's really nice to have some type of service provider that can explain things to you. Because I mean, I just, a couple months ago learned something about a client that's doing they have several different businesses and now they're adding a homestay, Airbnb kind of thing. And so like there are a ton of different implications, not only for liability reasons, but also for tax reasons and such. So it's definitely important to talk with a service provider. But circling back, I wanted to just find out, if anybody wanted to share about how this went for them, how this process went for them. I feel that like writing a business description is a lot of fun because the farmers technically, I mean, you can get a chance to brag about yourselves a little bit. You want this to also like be not only just like some boring description, that you just want to put on a piece of paper and throw away. I find that a lot of people, when we're moving into developing a marketing plan or developing messaging about the farm, they're using that business description exercise as a place to start. And you tell people about what's so unique about your farm, its history. I mean, there's a lot of farms that have such amazing histories that you want to tell the public about. And this is, your business description could be directly translatable to your marketing and your marketing messaging. But yeah, if anybody would like to take a moment to share, how this process went, please feel free to throw it into the chat.
Since we're on Zoom meeting, not Zoom webinar, you can throw it into the chat. If you also want to share verbally, you can raise your hand and we can call on you, especially if you're comfortable unmuting and sharing. I wanted to, while people are typing into chat, I wanted to go back to some of the conversation we were having about risk management and insurance. This is something I believe the National Agricultural Law Center has a map that shows which states do have this limited liability statute currently and which don't. It's changing all the time because more states are adopting it. So we'll send a follow-up email and we'll share that information. In addition to liability insurance, as Zach started to mention, zoning and permitting is also an important consideration, and that gets down to the local or county level often. So that really is going to vary location by location. And again, we can add in the email, follow-up email we send out, we can send some resources. For example, here in Vermont, we have a regulatory navigation guide specifically for agritourism, but it's only good in Vermont. It's gonna, things are gonna vary state by state, county by county, town by town. But thank you. Kelly is putting in some links that are very helpful in California for getting started in laws and regulations.
Before is a hard question. What makes your business competitive? These we only had a short period of time to go over these questions. This was a little bit of an exercise, but in a few minutes we're going to actually go into showing how you can track and how you can use AgPlan to address these questions, and we'll also show like the supporting resources that we have that allow that support you as you're addressing these questions. What makes your business competitive is very, very difficult for a lot of people to go through. Like on one hand, you have people that think that their business is the most amazing thing in the world. On the other hand, people are just like, they don't have confidence in putting into words what they're feeling about their business and how much they care about it. So it isn't meant to be, these questions aren't really meant to be answered immediately. They're meant to be worked upon and developed over time. But just to go over a few more points, Curtis mentioned a lot about like the location. Obviously, location is something very, very important for an agritourism business. You want to talk about where you are. Do you have several locations? You want to describe, your parcels, your acreage. If you're renting as well, these are things that that lenders are going to want to know about, as well as certain when you're coming up with certain legal things. And it's very important to consider special situations such as whether it's tribal trust lands. There's so many things that can be added to this description that not only provides richness, but an explanation about why you're getting into agritourism. A map right now is always advisable to include. And you want to talk about the advantages and the uniqueness of this location, as just like the uniqueness of the many other facets of your business. And that's where you're going to find your competitive advantage. Describing facilities, not only does this help just give a general description of what type of farm you are, the size, what quality, conditions, and such of your facilities are. You're going to also explain just like the facilities, equipment, and that just not only does it give you a good idea of what exactly you have at hand that you're managing, but it's also going to be very important for like someone who's going to come on to the business as a form of a partnership or in a form of any type of lender. They're going to want to see a detailed description of this, and you're going to want to come back to this when you're putting together a balance sheet, and we'll talk about that later on a couple weeks when we dive into the financial aspect of business planning. And like that, what we talked about earlier, your business history is a good way to basically formulate where you're coming from, and now you can talk about what you can use where you're coming from as a way to introduce on where you want to go. And just talking about how the business has developed is very important, not only for your planning process, but just to really check when you're going back and doing those revisions that we suggest, that you just look at the evolution of the business, and you want to look at the major highlights and the challenges that you faced in the history, but also looking historically over the past 5 years helps you look towards the future. So it's a process that we use a lot in business planning. And now that we have some creative juices flowing, I'd like to ask everybody to give a try. If we're at our computers, and if you can do it right now, let's go to AgPlan, and we will put a link in the chat here, and this will get you started on how to get going with AgPlan. And Curtis will share his screen and do a little screen share on how to get going with AgPlan. Let me know when you're ready, Curtis, and I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and start now. So, Zach mentioned it would be great if you had software and to be able to help you through this, be able to think through all the sections and everything. And it would also be great if it was free, right? Well, thankfully, AgPlan is. AgPlan has been around for about 15 years now. As I mentioned earlier, we develop it here at the Center for Farm Financial Management. It's a business planning, online business planning software, mobile friendly, completely free, lots of templates, and you're going to get lots of sections that you're going to get to see over the next 7 weeks. So I've gone to agplan.umn.edu. If you have not registered for an account, go ahead and click that register today button. All you need to do is put in your email address, and anything that has a star next to it, just put that in. The only main thing here is on the password. We only require 6 characters, but like I always say, be sure to use good strong password characteristics. So I'm going to go ahead and I click the AgPlan logo. I'm going to log in, and I put in my email, my password. And once we log in, there we go. We're going to close that. So when you first come in, you're going to be in your My Plan section. This is where any plan that you've created within AgPlans is going to be listed here. I happen to have a lot because I've done a lot of training on them. But you can see you can give them all kinds of different names. And then one of the other real powerful features of AgPlan that we'll show a little bit is that you can actually add reviewers. So you can add your business partners, you can add your family members to come in, help write certain sections or just review certain sections. We'll show that a little bit later. I'm going to click on Start a New Plan. So to do this, once you are in AgPlan, and I know you may not be at this point yet, so just come back and watch the recording a little bit later if you need to. But you click on that, click create a plan, and then you get to choose from the plan template types that we have here. So ag commodity, ag value added. Since we're going to be using agritourism in this training, we're going to select that one, but you can see the other ones that are here. I mean, I've worked with businesses who have used each of these types. Maybe not the agritourism template type because that's still new, but they've done lots of agritourism and value added types where they've used the ag value added template. So I'm going to click select on agritourism, and then I just need to give it a name. Let's see. I'm just going to name it agritourism class. You can name it whatever your plan is, and then click create plan. And then that takes us back to the My Plan section. And once we go back there, I'm actually going to go into a different plan type that I have that is a little bit more filled out so that you can get the full picture of it. I click on View Plan now, and then that takes me into the actual editing section of AgPlan. So I'm going to hit close over on the left-hand side, just so it's a little less overwhelming. So when you do that, you see these are the major sections that we were just talking about a little bit earlier. The cover page, executive summary, business description, operations, all of those things. And then over in the white box here, that is a text area where you can actually just type all of your information in. Or in this case, we've actually added a farm logo for Lakeshore Orchard, which you can do there as well. You can add all of that text. Let me go into executive. Let's actually go into the business description, since that's where we've been working. I've clicked on business description. That expands that list. And now we have all of those subsections that we were just talking about. So if we go into location, for example, here's where we can type in all of that information. And just to prove that this works, I'm just going to put in a little bit of text, and then you can do whatever you need to, like bold, italicize, underline. You can make it a lot bigger if you want to. Whatever you want, you can do that there. And then all of these sections, if they are blue, that means that there's text behind it. If it doesn't look like it's blue, then there's not anything that's been entered. And again, if I click expand, there's a lot of sections here. You do not have to use each of these sections for your business plan. You can use whatever is relevant for you and your business. The other powerful feature of AgPlan is down below the text entry box, we have tips, resources, samples, comments, and email reviewers. So, and the tips and resources and samples, as well as comments, are all unique to whatever section we're looking at. So there's tips on each of these sections. We have resources on each of these sections. I guess not in this section, but we'll find one. I know where we can go. We can go into financial position because I know I've added things there. There we go. There's resources that are specific to that section that we're working on. We have samples. And these really are meant to help you get over writer's block if you need to, and give you some ideas on what to put into each of these things as you think about it. And the question earlier of, how do you think through this? What's the process? How do you do this? Well, you start with resources and you see what other people are putting in there. And then it's just writing about what you want in your business plan. And then, as I said, you can add comments and email reviewers. So, for example, Katie Wiltz Johnson is another economist here. I can say I can actually email her from right here within AgPlan. Please take a look at this section. And then I can include comments if I want to. Sure, we'll do that. And then I'll click send, and then that will send her an email so she can go look at it whenever she needs to. And then she can come in and actually edit that. Over on the left-hand side, these three buttons here, they're green. That's just navigating throughout the site. So anytime you either click those buttons or you click anywhere in the outline on the left, your work is saved. And then down below, you can add PDF attachments. If I click on that little paper clip, so we've added our balance sheet, our income statement, all of those things. If I go to print, then we can print any of these. We can download this as a Word file, or we can download this as a PDF. So if I open that up as a PDF, and then there's our plan, and it generates a table of contents based on what we've put in. If we go to the attachments, there's all the attachments that we've added to this plan. So it's really, really powerful there. Just to show you how you can add reviewers, I'm going to click on that AgPlan logo. And then that will take me back to my plans. And then that will take a minute here. But what will happen is if I click on the reviewers for what we're working on, I can just add their email address in. If they have an account, they'll be added automatically. If they don't have an account with that email address, they'll be invited to create an account before they can get in. They can either just review it and then add comments, or you can actually invite someone to be able to edit the plan as well. So that is a very quick overview of AgPlan. Very quick overview. There's lots of information there, and I'm looking forward to you being able to get into AgPlan and practice and actually take what you've done in these in this class, in the homework assignments that you're going to have, and you can actually then take it and then put it into AgPlan and then be able to use it a little bit later. So with that, I think I'm turning it back over to Zach.
Let's open up the floor a little bit for a few minutes. I wanted to check out our chat.
Yeah, Zach, do you want to, we only have a couple minutes left, so let's scroll through the slides. We've got about 4 minutes because we want to make sure you have the support that you need to do this. So as we discussed, there's going to be homework every week. We're asking you before next Tuesday to complete or at least start your business description in AgPlan. And when we meet next Tuesday, we're going to be talking about operations. We've got Lindsay Paschow from a farm in the Adirondacks and Cornell Cooperative Extension, who's going to be leading the discussion on operations. And we'll have a similar format like today, where we'll start off with an overview of what do we mean by operations. We'll give you some time to work on it. We'll be ready the whole time to have back and forth with chat, Q&A, and even unmuting if people feel comfortable. And then, Zach, will you go to the next slide? We don't want to leave you hanging. So thanks to Curtis and his team at the Center for Farm Financial Management. Right here, we should drop this information in chat as well in case that's easier for people. There is a phone number. I know there's some people from Uganda and other places here on this call for us. So I should warn you, this is a phone number in the US. So, you know, maybe expensive to call it. If you're outside of the US, this is a phone number in Minnesota. You can call this number. There's an email address for you, as well as the Center for Farm Financial Management website. But if you want, you know, if you want to talk to a person, send an email or call this number. We warned Curtis that they might need a little extra staffing for the next 7 weeks as we've got people working on their business plans. But if you get stuck with whether it's like technical support with AgPlan or whether it's, you know, a question about writing your location description in the business plan, you are welcome to reach out to the Center for Farm Financial Management. One last slide. If you were with us at the webinar on January 23rd, we already asked you to do a survey. Well, sorry, we're going to ask you to do a survey again. It's very quick, very short. We're going to ask you to do pretty much the same survey. It may vary by a question or two at the end of every session. If you, there's a link that will drop into chat for the survey. Thank you, Amber. Just drop the link into chat, or you can use this QR code with your phone, with your smartphone. We had some questions about what does this cost? We are able to offer this for free thanks to a grant from the Northeast Extension Risk Management Education Center. But they require us to do a whole bunch of reporting, and we're happy to provide that information. I will say everything is confidential. Even if you choose to share your name, none of this goes beyond the internal reporting. We will never share any information about you or your farm or your business. But we do ask a few questions just to find out, what did you learn? What's helpful for you? What's not helpful for you? How can we do a better job of supporting you through this business planning process? So if you wouldn't mind spending a minute filling out that survey, and sorry in advance that we're going to keep bugging you to do the survey. And yes, it will be pretty much the same survey each time, but we're still going to keep asking you to do that. Sorry, reporting. Maybe we'll come up with a better system through this 7-week system, through the 7-week session, but that's what we have now. In closing, I want to thank you all for joining us. Please join us again next Tuesday at the same time. Curtis, Zach, any final words in closing?
Just thank you very much. And as a person who's written maybe hundreds of business plans and seen it go through, it's very worth it to move forward and stick to the plan. And yeah, I just can't say enough great things about how AgPlan really facilitates this process and allows you to get going in the right direction. So keep at it. Just getting started.
Thank you all. I look forward to hearing how your plans go and reading about them and all the surveys.
Thanks so much. We'll see everyone next Tuesday.